wisdom of 101 famous poems. Spoken and with commentary by E.T. Hansen. Abraham Lincoln walks at midnight in Springfield, Illinois. By Vacell Lindsay. It is portentous and a thing of state that here at midnight in our little town a mourning figure walks and will not rest near the old courthouse, pacing up and down, or by his homestead, or in shadowed yards. He lingers where his children used to play, or through the market on the well-worn stones he stalks until the dawn stars burn away. A bronzed, lank man, his suit of ancient black, a famous high top hat and plain worn shawl make him the quaint great figure that men love, the prairie lawyer, master of us all. He cannot sleep upon his hillside now. He is among us, as in times before, and we who toss and lie awake for long breathe deep and start to see him pass the door. His head is bowed. He thinks on men and kings. Yea, when the sick world cries, how can he sleep? Too many peasants fight, they know not why. Too many homesteads in black terror weep. The sins of all the warlords burn his heart. He sees the dreadnoughts scouring every main. He carries on his shawl-wrapped shoulders now the bitterness, the folly, and the pain. He cannot rest until a spirit dawn shall come, the shining hope of Europe free, the league of sober folk, the workers' earth, bringing long peace to cornland, alp, and sea. It breaks his heart that kings must murder still, that all his hours of travail here for men seem yet in vain. And who will bring white peace that he may sleep upon his hill again? What makes America great? Is it the size? Is it Hollywood, rock and roll, Coca-Cola? Is it the money, the sheer power of American capitalism? Living in Europe for the last 30 years and watching my home from such a distance, I learned a lot about America that I would not have known otherwise. More than anything, I learned what America does that other countries do not do. A few years back, I was surprised and shocked when President Trump threatened to take America out of NATO. His argument was that our European partners were not paying their dues, which was true, and that since the Cold War was over, it was time for Europe to take care of itself. What surprised me was the reaction in Europe. Living here for so long, I was used to Europeans complaining about the American military presence here, American missiles, American troops, American air bases. They were seen as a form of occupation, and hardly an election period went by when someone did not demand that the American military leave. So when Trump offered to do just that, I was expecting European leaders and the media to be happy about it. They were not. They were outraged. They screamed and cried and whined about how a rogue president was trying to destroy the world order and take down Western democracy. I had misjudged the situation. I had taken European talk seriously. In fact, it was just talk. What Europeans really want and need is for someone else to take on the burden of leadership while they spend their money on lifestyle. That's an aspect of the American role in the world today that people seldom talk about. The USA currently has military defense treaties with some 75 countries, promising them support if they are attacked in a variety of circumstances. On top of that, we give money to 150 nations in the form of cash or arms to support their own self-defense. The world may complain about American imperialism, but they depend on us. And I've noticed another thing, a sense of responsibility. Whenever a cruel dictatorship arises somewhere, when war comes to some small, out-of-the-way country, when a humanitarian crisis boils over, Europeans and Americans react differently. Both send money. Europeans and Americans, similarly rich, are also similarly generous when it comes to charity. But once the subject hits the presses and gets talked about, I hear Americans start to say, we have to do something about this. Europeans don't say that. If they say anything, it's the Americans have to do something about this. For some reason, it comes natural to Americans to assume that some crisis far off that really has nothing to do with us is still our responsibility. That doesn't mean we always do something about it or can be consistently relied upon. It certainly doesn't mean we always do the right thing, or even when we do the right thing, that we do it well. Sometimes things go wrong and we regret it. But while Europeans and most other countries feel responsible only when a disaster occurs right on their doorstep, Americans tend to feel responsible no matter where it happens. That goes a long way back. When Lincoln made the hard decision to attack the South, he didn't have to. There was no immediate economic reason. Economically speaking, the South, an agricultural economy, was more a drag on the North, an industrial economy, than an advantage. Nor was it a popular decision. The political will in the North to go to war with their brothers in the South was very limited. Many opposed it. And Lincoln wasn't dumb. Even if he estimated the war would end faster than it did, he knew the casualties would be high on both sides. And both sides were American. He knew he could easily lose. And even if he won, he knew he would go down in history as the only U.S. president ever to go to war against his own people. But he also knew that America would be stronger and better able to do its duty to the world if it was united. So he took on the risk and the responsibility of sending hundreds of thousands of men off to die to save a nation that fewer than half of Americans wanted to save. That, I believe, is what made him a great American president. The willingness to take the responsibility and strive for the greater good with no guarantee of a positive outcome for himself. If you look closely at some of the major wars America has been involved in over the years, you will notice something interesting. None of them affected us directly, and we had nothing to gain from most of them. When Hitler marched on Europe, the outcome would not have affected America. We could still sell our wheat and jeans and Disney movies to Europe, whether it was democratic, Nazi, or communist. Even the Europeans themselves were not willing, in most cases, to help each other. Still, we got involved. Vietnam was a French colony. When the country erupted in civil war, it should have been a French problem. It certainly had nothing to do with America. What did France do? They picked up and left. You can argue, and you may very well be right, that America should not have gotten involved, and even that communism could have been stopped without the U.S. going to war in Vietnam. You can argue that the Vietnam War did more damage to our own nation than good to anyone. But the remarkable thing is that we were the only country willing to take on the responsibility. That seems to be our role, for better or worse, to take on responsibility in this world. In the future, we will often stumble and fail, and every once in a while we will do something we can be proud of, but it will always be America that stands up and takes the challenge. If you want a definition of what makes a country great, I think that's as good as any.